It's a big speaker, 6 feet tall, weighing in at 400 pounds. It is a very large speaker, although it has a pretty thin cabinet. It's not as fat as it could have been, mostly to the fact that they used 2 woofers rather than 1 large one. So they were able to do a somewhat of a slim cabinet with this. It's in a black glossy finish, which is hard to keep pristine. This particular sample is in very good shape. No deep scratches anywhere, just a couple light scuff marks from rubbing up against something, which I think we'll be able to take out. Here they are featured without the side covers. There is a side plate that goes right here that sort of finishes off the speaker. I think it looks kind of cool without it. It's a lot more industrial looking, and I like the shape of the speaker better without those sort of wing covers, but they are included, and they will ship with the speakers. So let's talk about the design. It's the base units work in tandem. So there is a 12-inch driver and a 15-inch driver, which is pretty big, as witnessed by this massive 6-inch port, which is pretty crazy for a speaker to have a 6-inch port. So these are ported speakers, obviously, and the design idea is similar to the Watt Puppy, which was so successful for Wilson Audio. Essentially a cabinet upon a cabinet. In this case, we've got a base cabinet that has a secondary enclosure for the mid-range, and then another enclosure sitting on top that carries the tweeter, and then finally another top enclosure carrying another mid-range plus 2 more tweeters that are up and rear firing. I'll show you that in a second. So it's a pretty elaborate system. I guess you could call this a 3 or 4 design, depending on how you treat each of the speakers. So these cabinets here, that the mid-bass and the tweeter cabinets actually slide back and forth through these bolts on the side here. These are adjustments that you can use. They're graduated here, and as you slide the speaker back and forth between 1 and 10, you can change essentially the time alignment between these 3 cabinets. So these slide forward and back depending on how you want to configure them. Now the manual goes into great details on how to do that and how to get the best time alignment, but a lot of it is just personal taste. Typically you will see the tweeter further back than the mid-ranges as the high frequencies travel faster than the mids. So going back to the woofers are 12 and 15 inch, and they are made by Focal. Those would have cost upwards of $1,000 each back in the era. They're massive drivers. The magnetic structures are absolutely gigantic. So the mid-ranges are made by Dyne Audio. They're 7-inch mid-ranges, and then the tweeter is made by Focal. And that's pretty interesting that Wilson went through all the pain and trouble to actually source drivers from 3 different manufacturers for a single speaker. That just tells you how intent they were on getting it right. So let me give you a close-up of the mid-range. Here's a 7-inch mid-range, drivers, and then the titanium tweeters, and here's a secondary driver. We talked about the top unit containing more tweeters. If I go to the back, here you can see there's another Focal tweeter there, and even one at the top, as you make out there for up firing. So these would essentially bounce high frequencies off the walls to give you a little bit more of a sound stage. On the back, you'll notice a lot of connections. Here in this cabinet here, there is a crossover. This cabinet, if you were to remove this, you would see the crossover for the 3 modules that sit on top, and then the connections going to it. Here you see an upper frequency connection, excuse me, let me focus that, and ultra high frequency connection here. And then if we were to take a peek back in there, you would see the mid-range and the tweeter connections as well. All right, going back to the bottom of the speaker, here you have quite a few more connections, but Wilson tried to keep it simple, and they actually you only need 1 single pair of speaker connections to power these. So don't be overwhelmed by the amount of stuff sitting back here. It's really just a single cable that will power it. And then looking further down, we fitted this particular speaker because of its weight We've put these super heavyweight casters that allow us just to move the speaker around the shop without damaging anything. But these do come with spikes. Once you get them situated, you're able to pull the wheels off and put spikes on. And I imagine that's what these here are for. There are some covers here that have some sort of gantry crane that would have shipped with these that allows you to kind of lift them and replace the casters with spikes. So let me give you a few more details about the speaker. Sensitivity is really what stands out most about these. These are 95 dB efficient, which means that you don't really need much power to drive them. Now with 300 watts, you can drive these to 120 dBs at 1 meter, which is crazy. That is nightclub or discotheque sort of sound levels or concert halls. But with 20 watts, you can get 102 dBs out of these, which is also incredible. That means you can roll these with single-ended tube amps, with small EL34s. Really, you can just play with amplifiers without really having any limitations in terms of power. So really 15 to 20 watts is a magical spot. 100 watts does a really, really good job, and 300 watts is if you want to get every single dB and you don't really care about your hearing. So now the cabinets themselves are not made out of wood. They're made out of this material that Wilson developed way back, which is essentially a composite, incredibly dense. When you kind of wrap your knuckles on it, it feels like almost it's a block of concrete. It is absolutely inert. And I know they put a lot of effort into those, the technology. They called it X-1, and they never really quite disclosed what it's made out of, because it is in fact something that's patented by them. But that same composite was used for many, many years in all sorts of speakers from Wilson. What else? Well, I guess the most unusual feature is the use of dissimilar sized woofers. The fact that there is a 12 and a 15-inch woofer is unusual for a speaker manufacturer. You would have maybe found that in vintage JBL or Altex from a different era, but in modern speakers it's pretty unusual. Wilson claims that this allowed them to not only use a slimmer cabinet than if they had had a single 18-inch woofer, but it also gives them better transient control. So both of those drivers made by Focal are not actually paper, even though they look like they are paper. They're made out of a high density, it's a glass fiber reinforced pulp. Let's take a close look. They've got this really cool vented dust cap, and then this looks at a distance like it's paper, and it is in fact made out of pulp, but it's got some sort of glass fiber coating on it that gives it incredible stiffness when you push on it. Now, what do we do for these speakers when they come here? Well, they all suffer from the same things. Back in the 1990s, they didn't really know how to make a stable foam material. As you can see, this baffle material, it would deteriorate over time, and just about every Wilson speaker from that era comes here with the foam completely deteriorated and falling apart. And now luckily Wilson is an amazing company, and they actually will sell you entire new kits for refoaming your speakers, or at least the baffles themselves. And as you can see, we've applied brand new foam baffles to the base cabinets, the mid cabinet here with the Velcro already in place, and with the tweeters and the tweeter inserts. So this material is a modern foam material that will not age and deteriorate the way the old one did. So if you buy these speakers, you can expect this foam to probably outlive you. The second thing that we find is that on the 12-inch woofers in particularly, that foam surround also deteriorates and fails. So we send it out to, sometimes we do it in-house, and sometimes we send it out to our favorite woofer repair shop to have them professionally done. And this one you can see has just come back, and it looks like the day it left the factory. There's no sloppy glue marks or any sort of signs that it was actually refoamed. So that's a good job. And here we take a closer look at the 15-inch woofers, which are also in impeccable shape. All right, now these speakers come with a bunch of accessories. So as I mentioned before, we order not just an entire foam kit, but we also order all the grills that would have come originally with this, because they also would have deteriorated. So here we've got an assortment of, you know, super high quality grills that came back from Wilson. These are fabric grills on a composite frame. And the appropriate Velcro in case you want to attach the much larger grills, which are down here, to the cabinet. We won't put the Velcro on. A lot of people like the look without the dust covers in place, and we do as well. So if our next client is going to want to use the grills, we will apply the Velcro before they ship. And then moving on to other accessories. Here's a well-appointed speaker. You can see here that we've got a set of wrenches for adjusting the casters, a set of Allen wrenches for adjusting the modules to be able to slide them back and forth and take apart the speaker. These are the caps that cover the holes on the side panels that we discussed about, along with the screws that hold the side panels. And then look at these spikes. These are crazy cool. These would take the place of the casters in case you want to couple the speaker to the floor. Some extra dust caps. These are extra fuses in case you overplay it. Nice thing about Wilson speakers is the tweeters are protected by these fuses, the solid state fusers that are easy to get and easy to replace in case you ever blow something. So this keeps you from damaging any of the drivers, which is nice. We almost never see a Wilson speaker with a damaged driver. It's almost often just the sacrificial part that goes. And then these are the old batches. As I mentioned, this was a Series 1 speaker that had been upgraded to a Series 2. Here's the upgrade ship out checklist to bring it from Series 1 to Series 2, which involved essentially reworking, I think it was replacement of the tweeters, the upper crossovers got reworked, and a bunch of other little components to make it into a spec MK2. All right, so this is it. The Wilson Audio Grand Slam. I mentioned this is our second set. We do have another set right here, which also went through the exact same restoration. This is an MK1, which has the original tweeters. There's a very little difference between MK1 and MK2. And the speakers are essentially in the same shape and have gone through the same restoration process. We have new grills and new foams and everything for them as well. So here you go, the Wilson Audio Grand Slam X1. Thanks for watching. This is Sci-Fi Audio. You can visit us online at hifiaudio.com. We have about 500 or 600 items up on our website for sale, mostly vintage cool audio, just like this. And please subscribe to our channel and give us some likes. It'll keep us motivated to keep making videos for you. Thanks for watching.